All right, this is going to probably be the last video for a few days. Just had a bit of a flurry when this Minimax-H3 came out, and this now, I've got two options for upscaling. One, I'm going to show you both and give you the workflows. The first one you're looking at is, this is probably the best, and it's using Minimax-H3 as its own upscaler. I'll talk through this in a minute. This comes from a guy called Sifwitawil. I don't even know what that means, on Discord. I only started testing it yesterday, got it working. It basically uses two samplers, uses H3, and it takes ages, and it really likes ooming, but it does a really good job. Obviously because it's controlling the references. Now, I've seen some people start a discussion on the fact that they don't reckon Minimax-H3 keeps faces consistent. I don't know this for certain. I've only been testing it on my basic clips at this stage. So what I'm actually going to do after this is work on some of my old videos and see what I can see in the way of, put it all to the test. Because now we have upscalers, that means we can get, as good as can be got on a 3060. The ooms are a problem. Like, there's no way to push through them at certain resolutions, and I'll talk about that in a minute as I go through this. And the other one is, I've added one little change to the LTX 2.5 workflow, and it's made a huge difference. My mistake was, because I was going up to 3 megapixels, and using 2304 by 928 and just resizing it up from 1824, I forgot to consider the fact that that's going to just stretch the pixels out if you're resizing it. So what I've done instead is put in the RTX Nvidia super resolution, which is really good, and that actually upscales it. So it's tidying up the pixels. Even though nothing's changed, it's tidying up the pixels to get to that size. And the result is much better and much cleaner. And there's an example in the GitHub for you there. And I'll talk through this workflow just briefly as well, because I've already done that. So let's start with the big one. This is a beast, but it takes... I'll just give you the basics, because I've chucked a load of information in there for you on what I'm doing. And what I found was... using the intake model is preferable because of the quality, but I can only get to 1120 by 448, which then gets multiplied, goes through one sampler, saves itself out, and it looks all right at that size. It's not too bad, a bit speckledy and a bit, and then I do the same thing with this super resolution upscaler. It comes out to pixel space. There's nothing that I'm aware of that works in latent space to upscale Minimax-H3 at this time, as far as I'm aware, not successfully. Someone said there is one, but you have to actually then put it through all the same steps again. And at this point, this multiply it by 1.5 and it's up at something like 1920 or something close to it. And that's using a lot of VRAM at that stage. So I've tried cleaning it all out, but nothing really works. And other than setting that size for the intake pruned model, and then it goes through the second pass, and the second pass is 3 steps. He had it at 1, but I found 3 work better. Denoise of 0.3. I haven't tried changing that because it was pretty good. And they use his res multi-step, and I haven't tried changing that there either. But I did change that in the first sampler where I use ERSTE because I actually prefer it. And his was like 10 steps and simple scheduler, but I've done 8 because I'm using the, and this is the old one. I haven't updated it to the new version. I think there's another one out, but Kijai's version of LightX 2V LoRa to speed things up. I am still using Comfyui Kitchen Attention. I'm hearing from some 3090 guys that it doesn't work well for them. They prefer Sage. I'm hearing from some 5090 guys that it works well for them, where previously I'd been hearing that it doesn't. So it's very much, it seems, test it on your rig. If it doesn't work, use Sage Attn, and use Sage Attn 2.2. I think that's the best one to use. Now, I did get results at my preferred size, which was 1120448 is that 0.5 MP for the first sampler. Now I wanted to get 1280 by 512. But it would on the first go, and sorry, it would go through the first one, save it out, do the upscale, and then hit in there. So I tried cancelling it, putting in a video loader here, loading the video, this first sampler video back in here, clearing out the cache using this and cancelling and everything, and then running it through again, and that did work. But that's a really messy way to approach it. And what I actually found was using the W4A8 model, I could actually go to 1280 blah 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 there, but the results I don't think were quite as good. Now, another weird thing I'm seeing people talk about is using the FL2V, which is supposed to be first frame, last frame, and making some tweaks to muck around with it so that it uses all your reference images. And apparently that's better and faster, but there's only so much we can test here, and I haven't even looked at that yet. But yeah, so if you want to go to try the higher res, and I've shared examples of both my outputs for you to have a look at and decide which you think's better. Now, the big trouble with this workflow is you're looking at, on my 3060, I was looking at 45 minutes for the Int 8 and 55 minutes for the W4A8 when I boosted the resolution up a bit. That's, I think it's the best result so far. I'm going to test it further with other inputs and see how it looks, and we'll go from there. So that's this model using the H3. So hopefully, controlling the references still too, making use of those. Now, the more references you add in, the more problems you get. Or rather, sorry, not the more problems you get, the more VRAM you use. So, depending on how many of these you're using. Now, another thing to mention, because someone else has said this to me who was in the YouTube comments, said, why aren't you putting the faces in bigger so that it can make better use of it? And here's another point that I noticed. This workflow is using it at max. I haven't switched it to match, which I usually use to test it. So there's lots to test still. And to be honest, when they said that comment, I thought, you know what, I wonder if that's part of the problem. But I don't think it is, because I think these sizes are big enough for it to still be able to, manage it when it goes to distances like that. And that, in my opinion, that's pretty freaking good. Like, look at it. This is the end result of that model. There's a bit of distillation, but I think it's fantastic compared to what I've been seeing in some. But there's another thing that I've noticed chatting with people on Discord, and they're like, face consistency is awful. And I'm like, what? Face consistency is good. And I'm realising that everyone's got their own grade where they consider good and bad, and it's actually quite a wide spectrum when it comes to face consistency. And it's clear that I don't give much of a monkeys as long as it's roughly right, and it's clear there's a lot of people out there that need every freckle to be spot on. So it's going to be, pepper to taste. But this thing, it's a beast, it works, but yeah, you're going to be waiting around for it a long time. Meanwhile, if you're lower VRAM and you don't want to waste time waiting, this LTX 2.5 is actually now working quite well. I've also tidied it up, as you can see. I've removed all the guff. Now, I've left this in down here because I briefly tested audio in and oomed at 3 MP, and I can't be bothered to test it further because I'm doing such low denoise on the way in. 5 steps, so essentially 4 and 0.5. I can't be bothered because it does keep the mouth roughly right. And for now, until we see some super duper new upscaler appear, I'm just going, oh, look, this will do for now, because we're not making perfect movies yet, are we? Let's face it. So this actually gave me good results. And again, there's an example on the GitHub that I will share with you for you to have a look. And I've tidied it up just so it's a little bit less messy than it was for those of you that want to use it and actually understand what's going on. You can now look at that. And, there's a couple of things in there to adapt, so read my notes if you want to do that. I'm done messing around with upscalers. Next, I'm actually going to do some content and see where I go with it and start to see whether we really do have high value out of Minimax-H3 or whether there's some fundamental problems with character consistency and dialogue and whatnot. Another thing to mention about that has been discovered, that I discovered and thought it was just me, was when if you remember in one of the other videos, I said I used 3 audio cloning voice examples here. I didn't use 4 because she wasn't speaking, this one. And what happened was his voice was used, then she spoke and her voice was used. But then when it came to Blondie, who was supposed to be English, and this black woman was American, Blondie spoke American in the same accent, and so it was using that. And other people have said, oh yeah, it's only using 2 audio to sync, to clone at all, and if you do any more it doesn't. And then someone else of course went, no, it works fine. And then I wondered, I don't know why it might be doing that, and it might be a limitation of the model, but I also wondered, and I haven't discussed this with anyone yet, maybe the pruned into 8 versions are cutting stuff out, and one of the places they cut out is maximum use of audio files. Because if there's 3 slots for audio, you'd have thought it would use 3, but it definitely, for me and for a couple of other people, it will use the same gender. The first one used will be used for all the other women who tried to speak, or all the other men. So it's got a gender thing as well. That's just a by the by, a little bit of extra information, something I've discovered. So that's it for me for now. I'm going to get on and do some content, and the next videos from me probably be a little more than a few days time, unless I find some magic bullet for something and go, oh my God, I've got to tell everyone about this. So for now, that's the latest. Enjoy the workflows. Chat soon.